Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. So the writer of Proverbs here is telling us that above everything else, guard your heart. Yeah. Beyond anything else you would do, guard your heart. That's a very strong statement. And then he clarifies and explains why in his next words. He says, for out of it flow the issues of life. Now, a lot of times when we hear the word issues, you might be inclined to think that he's talking about problems. He's not necessarily talking about problems. It's good to consider issues more from the standpoint of thinking of it as water. That's why he uses the word spring. If you think of a spring, like a natural spring where water bubbles up from beneath the surface of the earth and bubbles to the surface of the earth, almost like a geyser or something like that. So when he's talking about the issues of life, he's not just talking about problems. He's just talking about whatever manifests, period, good or bad. So he says, above all else, guard the heart. For out of it spring the issues of life. So now we're better understanding the centrality of the heart as it relates to how we experience life and what we experience in life. Also speaks to the reason why Jesus, in the passage that we read from in Matthew chapter 6, is emphasizing the importance of honoring the secret place, the place that is metaphorical, if you will, or synonymous with the heart. This place that no one else can see, the place that governs how we show up, by the way. As a matter of fact, linking with Proverbs 4:23, let's now go back to the New Testament, back to the Gospel of Matthew, but this time we're going to fast forward a little bit to the words of Jesus in Matthew chapter 12. I want to show you something here. Matthew chapter 12. Check this out. In context, Jesus is rebuking those religious leaders of the time who were coming against him, accusing him of casting out demons by the power of demons. And he just rebukes them, saying, let's start in verse 34 to give a little bit of context. Brood of vipers, which is a way of saying you bunch of snakes. Jesus will crack me up. The record of scriptures crack me up because it talks about these moments where Jesus was quite blunt in how he felt about some of these casted characters. And he didn't mince words when he communicated such. So he says, brood of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Now check out verse 35. He goes deeper and explains a profound principle. A good man, out of the good treasure of his heart, brings forth good things. And an evil man, out of the evil treasure, brings forth evil things. My God, have mercy. So Jesus is expounding upon and qualifying and proving that much more the words we have read in Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 23. He's talking about the centrality of the heart as it relates to how we show up. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I can hear it even through the virtual space and time and whatnot. But Travis, what does this have to do with prayer? Everything. And I'm going to tell you why. If you don't understand the relationship between the words that you speak and your heart, and you're not aligned, your words aren't aligned with your heart, then you will misfire in your prayer. I'm going to say that again. If you fail to understand the relationship between the words that you speak and the posture of your heart, then you will misfire in prayer. Somebody say, what do you mean by misfire? Your prayers will be ineffective. Because, ladies and gentlemen, your heart, this is something we mentioned last week, your heart is always speaking, whether you want it to or not. Can I go there? In fact, I think that's worthy of being a point unto itself. Somebody put that in the chat and say, your heart is always speaking. Always. Doesn't matter where you are. Doesn't matter what you're doing. That doesn't matter. Your heart is always speaking. You, ladies and gentlemen, are always expressing. Even if you're being still, you are expressing something. Your posture is expressing something. Your emotions are bleeding through some form of fashion and how you show up. And all of these things are outworkings of the contents of your heart. And if you don't understand that, your heart will be saying one thing and your mouth will be saying another one. And guess which one that heaven and earth respond to? Guess. Out of the abundance of the heart, a good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth good. Keep that in mind. Let's go back now to James. Woo! Are you getting this? Are you with me? This is critical. James chapter 1. Hallelujah. James chapter 1. Yeah, and look at Yeah, let's start in verse 5. One of my favorite passages, by the way. James chapter 1, verse 5. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach. Liberally and without reproach. And it will be given to him. But check out verse 6. But let him ask in faith with no doubting. For he who doubts, watch this, is like a wave of the sea driven and tossed by the wind. For let not that man suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. Let not that man suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. Now, this is interesting. He says, let him ask in faith with no doubting. For he who doubts is like a wind, or is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For let not that man suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. In other words, there is a lack of agreement within himself. There is a lack of, how can I put it? There's a lack of alignment. There is a communication of one thing, asking God to do it, but not believing that he's able or that he will. Verbalizing what you desire, but believing for something different. And your believing matters because, as Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 4 said, the just shall live by his faith. Not merely by his words, but by his faith. I want you to let that sit. What is it that you have been believing? I'm not asking you to ponder what it is you've been asking for or what it is you desire. I'm saying, what do you believe? What is influencing your reality, your perception, your decision making? Ladies and gentlemen, that is your belief. Show me the decisions that you make, the pattern of choices that you make, and the way that you show up on a regular basis, and I will show you what you believe. Because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And I can't stress this enough because, again, there's a tendency to put confidence merely in what we say, negating where our hearts are. And Jesus makes it plain in places like Mark chapter 9, verse 23. He says, all things are possible to him who says, to him who declares with his lips, all things are possible to him who believes. And belief is a function not of the lips, but of the heart.